Talking about the story that you shared regarding how you were experiencing how your mom was teaching and all that. What was the turning point for you to kind of, because you decided you didn't want to teach at all, like you didn't want to be in the education sector. So what was the turning point? What was the moment that kind of like turned everything for you to kind of, you were like, see, I know I don't want to do this, but I need to help people because this is what I'm supposed to do, right? My purpose is to do this. So what was the turning moment like?
So that turning point, now I have to be very transparent. It wasn't all about helping people either. I had a change in my family, right? So I had an infant, which means I didn't want to travel anymore, right? I wanted to be at home more often,
Yeah.
right? And so that was probably the first priority, right? Before helping others, it was help myself
Yeah.
and be home with my baby. But I had an opportunity through a friend of mine, and she had said, well, have you ever thought about teaching? Because my career was actually, believe it or not, was in educational technology and professional development for educators. I still never went away from education, but I was just
Yeah.
on the business side of it,
True,
right?
true.
So we had started our doctoral program, and I said, okay, I'll do this as, I'll see where this goes. And she said, well, do you want to try teaching now as an adjunct? I said, well, I can try it, right? I mean, I work on how
Yeah.
to teach, instructors how to do things. Okay, so let me try this. And with that, it was having the students sitting in the classroom and sharing their experiences, and this kind of, and for those particular students, they weren't quite sure why they were even in college. And it was like, oh, wow. They need some support,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They need to have someone who can tell them why are you here and what that means for you and your family for generations to come, right? And that just kind of hit home to me, like, someone spending money for this education for that student not to know why they're here.
Wow.
And so that was when I changed around and said, okay, let me look at this as maybe a long-term kind of transition. If I can share my journey, if I can share the journeys of others and maybe inspire them to understand why they're here and what they can gain from experience. And that's how I kind of transitioned into teaching full time.
Wow.
It really was a draw of, they needed someone that they could talk to, and they needed someone that they could ask questions.
Wow.
And I found that rewarding
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. It's so powerful. When you were talking about it, it's like whenever young people, for example, myself, whenever I'm trying to do something, or let me just put it in general, whenever we are trying to do something as humans, sometimes we have the energy at first. It's like two ways. We have the energy at first, and then as it stretches over a long period of time, it dissipates. Or sometimes you don't have the energy, but as soon as we keep doing it consistently, we gain the momentum to kind of like keep going, right? So how should people approach kind of like what they want to do with their lives in both cases? In first one, the case where they don't have the energy, but in the future it might be developed, and other cases where they have the energy at first, but it dissipates over a period of time.
When you said it like that, I kind of equated it to like running. I'm not a runner, never been a runner, but there's preparation, right? So there's some training that takes place, right?
Yeah.
And that training is really kind of mapping things out, asking the questions, pulling the resources. And it's a slow start, but you start to build that momentum as you go, right? If I ask the question of someone, can someone show me how to do this? Oh, okay, maybe I'm going to step out here and maybe join this organization and see if I can develop maybe some leadership skills. Oh, this feels comfortable. Let me see if I can join something else, or maybe let me go and get a certification in something. And then this momentum starts building because now we're accomplishing things. And
Yeah.
every time that you accomplish something, you're like, I got this. Give me something else,
Yeah.
right? Give me a harder challenge. And so they start to build up the
Yeah.
stamina, right, to reach these goals and to really pursue those things. And then you have those that they come out of the gate and it is a sprint, right? And it's like, no, 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 this is not just a few yards. These are several
This is a
miles.
marathon.
Like, slow down, slow down. And for both cases, it's like, okay, you have to, again, you're mapping things out, you're training, you're looking at those short-term and long-term goals, right? So you're not running so fast that you're, ticking all these boxes, but you didn't learn the lesson, right? You're ticking all these boxes, but did you build upon those skill sets, or did you just, here they are, but you didn't figure out how that's going to work for you long term, right? Sometimes when you're so consumed with something, then you're like, you burn out. Your mind just burns out because you're constantly thinking about it.
Yeah.
But when you slow down and take it little by little, you can keep the pace. You can reach the goals. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I kind of equate it to.
does.
I equate it to like training to
Yeah.
run. It's really a marathon. When you think about life,
Yeah.
is a journey.
Yeah.
It's a marathon. It's definitely not a sprint. You've heard that cliche a lot, right?
Yeah.
But it really is pacing yourself by having these markers of where you want to be at a certain time, knowing it's not always going to play out like
True.
that. But if you're slow, okay, I need to get to this point by this time, so I need to move a little bit faster. I need to pull on some different resources. I need to increase my skills in
Yeah.
certain areas. And if I'm out the gate, whoa, if I reach there too fast, what's next, right? What did I really gain
Yeah.
from just rushing to get there, right?
True.
So I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah.
it does. And sometimes when we talk about a thing being cliche, I think as human beings we tend to trivialize certain things, like we commonize a lot of things, right? And sometimes the things that we feel are so common are very important, right? So for example, mentioning that life is a journey or something like that, I think it's important that we kind of like pay attention to the fact that even though it's common, it's fundamental, but so important. And one thing that I think is also cliched in this area is learning. I think life is a progressive learning.
It
like
is.
you have to learn all the way through life, right? There's no point that you kind of like you know everything, so you stop learning through life. Life will surprise you, trust me.
It will.
All right. So how should young people approach learning, whether in academic setting or in life in general?
Actually, I think that circles back to what we talked about before. How do you apply it to yourself? So the process of learning is that you are filing this information away in your little filing cabinet in your brain for later use, right? But if you don't have a file system that says, I can use this for X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
later on, then the file is getting dusty and you never pull it out again, right? So I think in the process of learning is always asking questions, right? Always surrounding yourself, and it's another cliche, surrounding yourself with people who know more than you, right?
Yeah.
If you're the smartest person in the room, wrong
need
room,
another
right?
room.
You need
Yeah.
another room, right? You need
Yeah.
to go to another room. And then everything that you learn, you're thinking, how can I use this? Maybe I don't know how to use it now, but how can I use it later on, right? So I think having those little filing cabinets of how can I apply this later on, so the learning is impactful, it stays with you, it has meaning, right? You can learn, but it doesn't have meaning to you until you can see yourself using that skill or that knowledge at some point in time. So I would go back to that. Make sure that you have an application for that skill set or for that learned lesson.
Yeah, and since you are talking about cliches, I also want to add this that we know that, or we've heard at one point in our lives that everyone fails at least once in their life, right? Or like there are failures, right? What is one significant failure that you've had in your life and it kind of like impacted you like positively?
I think one of the things that again, I said that now and I say it to students, to advocate. And so I've been in positions where I didn't advocate for myself. I didn't speak up, that things were piled on my plate and not on others, right? That it was difficult for me to work through the workload,
Yeah.
and I thought I could do it all, so therefore I didn't ask for the help.
Mm.
I didn't say that this is not within the scope of what I'm here to do, right? And so that caused a lot of internal conflict, right? I tried to see it as though they gave me this workload because I'm good at it.
Mm.
And then I realized, no, you gave me this workload because you didn't want to do it, right? I can do it, but it's
Yeah.
because you didn't want to do
Yeah.
it, right? And so always advocating, like, you cannot be Superman, Superwoman.
Yeah.
You can't be the superhero all the time.
Yeah.
And that was a failure, and it caused me some difficulties,
Wow.
right? Even health difficulties, because I was taking on too much
much,
and
yeah.
stressed, right? You have to really be cognizant of
True.
stress load,
Yeah.
right? But also it delayed me from moving on to the next things,
Wow.
because I was inundated with all of this work that I couldn't look at my long-term goal because I
Yeah.
was so in the present.
Focus on that now, yeah.
Exactly. So I think knowing when to say no, that's probably the better way to say it.
Mm.
Sometimes I don't, even now, sometimes I don't know when to say no. No. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love love the opportunity. I'm at full capacity. So learning when to say when, and especially as young adults and you're getting into your careers, you want to do everything.
Yeah.
And again, you have this value proposition, and so you want to showcase it every time you get a chance. It's okay. Sometimes it's okay to say
No.
no
Mm. Wow.
and focus on what your goals are. And then also realize when they're just piling the stuff on you.
Yeah, you have to know the difference, right? Were there some practical steps that you took during this time that helped you, that you can share with young people?
I actually wrote down a couple of words, right? During that time, I was like, I didn't feel confident because I'm going to my manager, right? I'm going to the CEO to say these things. And I had to write them down, right? So I felt a little more confident. I had my little cliff notes. Oh, you all don't know about cliff notes. Anyway, I had little cliff notes with little bullet points. And I had everything written out.
Wow.
I wanted to have a meeting. And I sat down and said, here's the situation. And I laid everything out. I had my little notes. And so it was, that's it.
Wow.
I'm going to share this perspective, respectively, right,
Yeah.
to your supervisor
Yeah.
and, whoever. But here are my concerns. So I'm going to share those. And what can we do, right? Well, you know what? Let's go back to that other question. Let me add to that. So learning how to say no and documenting everything. So again, as I looked at workloads that were coming, I was documenting when it was being done, who it was being done by, what was the justification for it, that type of thing. When you have so much on your plate and you can't finish it, right? And then they're like, well, why haven't you done that?
Yeah.
And you're feeling like guilty and reprimanded. And it's like, but do you see how much you put on my
Yeah.
plate, right? And you expect for me to take
Finish
care of all of this,
everything,
right? So document things so that becomes the support of when you say no. Here's why. And when you can run that off, right? Then it's like, oh, we didn't realize that this was the situation, or, we didn't know that you felt that way. Maybe that wasn't their intention, or maybe they're like, oh, well, we'll remove this. Sometimes you get apology, sometimes you
Yeah,
don't,
you
right?
don't,
You just kind of go with the situation that you've advocated for yourself, you've
True.
learned how to say no,
True.
and you've documented why you're saying no to things. So I would
Wow.
say that's what you need to do.
Yeah, that's so powerful. One thing that I kind of like realize all the time is, I think there are certain things that are priorities to us right now that wouldn't be a priority in the near future, right? So growing up, there are certain things that were priorities to you, probably, but now when you look back, you don't carry those things anymore. You've dropped everything. For young people today, what do you think is something that will have a lifelong importance? And so young people should focus on.
Okay. Wow. One thing that you should never drop from your priorities is empathy.
Mm.
Look at the other person, walk in their shoes, understand where they're coming from, get their perspective, right?
Mm.
Before you jump and make assumptions about
True.
why they do and act the way they are. Always keep that. Always keep that. I think for most young people, this is a tough question. I think for a lot of young people, it is still kind of a sense of belonging to a particular group or to appear to be a part of. What's the better way to it? There's a better way for me to describe this.
Yeah.
I don't want to pull social media into it, but I'll have to pull it in as an example. All right, I'll pull it in as an example, right?
Sure.
For some young people, it is about, I want to appear to be this, right? And that's part of that middle school, and then really up until you graduate from college,
True.
you're concerned about what other people think about you, right? It's the peer pressure. And so, again, I'm of a certain age before all this social media stuff. So I look at students now that they're concerned about how they appear on social media. They want to be someone they're not, right? And so then they cause this pressure on themselves.
True.
So I think that's one of the things. Don't worry about what other people think, right? If you are doing what your purpose is, if you're walking in your journey and you are being yourself, you're not disrespecting other people, right? Don't worry what other people think, right?
Yeah.
Walk in your path. That'll drop off, right? So now I'm my mother gave me some good advice. And she says as you get older your filter drops away. Like sometimes I'm just going to say it, right? No offense, but I'm just going to say it.
I'm just going to say, yeah.
I'm going to dress the way I want to dress. I'm going to do what I want to do as long as it's within respectable means of my position, right? And of my peers and things of that nature and of my faith. But who cares what other people think? At the end of the day, are they judging you? No, right? Depending on your faith, at the end, no one is going to judge you but whoever you believe in or whatever you believe in, right? So live your life. Live your life. Respectively, live your life. That drops away.
I don't know, but sometimes it sounds controversial to me, like personally, when we say don't care about what people think.
That was why it was so hard for me to say what's a good example, because I don't want anyone to take it the wrong way.
Exactly, because I try to ask, to what extent should we not care? Because I feel like at some point we should care. We should actually care about what people think.
See, this is where that loop starts happening. Okay.
I'm sorry, but
okay. I can't think of a better way to put this other than if you know your purpose, right? If you know what your journey is looking like to you, then live that journey. As long as it's not infringing on other people or disrespecting other people, right? So I had to always put that caveat in there, right? As young people, and especially as you're starting into your career, you have to care what your employer wants. Let me put that out there.
Very important.
Yeah, that's important, right? You have to care what your school says that you're supposed to do, right? You can't just live just recklessly. And that's why I said be respectful of whatever I can't even say the norms. Be respectful of the environment and some of the expectations of that environment. You have to do that, right? But other than that, don't change who you are, right? Because you want to be like someone else. That I think is a better way. You're not trying. You have to be you, right? You can't conform to be someone else. So yes, you do want your employers, you do want your school, you want them to be impressed because you need those resumes, you need that promotion,
absolutely.
You need those recommendations, and all that. So yeah, we need to find another subject. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to navigate.
Yeah. I think like the kind of impact whatever you do sometimes, or I think almost all the time, I don't know if I'm right on this, is tied to your background or like your environment.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes not geographically, but like the kind of environment that you create, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think at some point you might have to care, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to set the
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. I want us to kind of like put everything together, because like you've dropped so much. I don't know how to, take the what route to take again. But I want to say this. One thing that you shared with me was the Afghan proverb, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want us to delve a little bit into it.
Mm-hmm.
It says it takes a village to raise a child.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is my interpretation of that saying. So being in education and being a community member, we see these young lives, right? And you're starting your journey. And there are things that we can do to not mold you, but help guide you in a positive direction so that you do live your life the way you want to with your journey and in your journey and with your purpose. And so instilling, let me see, instilling those values that are part of the community, right? That become the foundation. You can't build a house unless you have a solid foundation.
Yeah.
And that foundation is not built by one person.
Mm.
It takes a whole crew to make sure that it's level, it's sound, it's cured, so that it can be built upon by the next set of teams,
True,
right?
true.
And so when I think about it takes a village to raise a child, if you are involved with young people, whether it's children or college students, realize that you're helping to set that foundation, that you're helping them to build the next level of this house. You're helping them to, put the framework and put the siding on. And it's your responsibility as a community member, whatever that community may be, it's your responsibility to contribute in a positive way, right? Be there when they have questions. If there are resources that you can bring to them that help them to shore up that foundation and begin building your life, do it,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I see with being in education. I'm here not only to facilitate the learning of the discipline, right? But I'm also here to, if there are some potholes I see coming,
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you know, watch out, turn left, turn
Yeah.
right. You don't have to take my advice, but I'm going to give that to you, right?
Absolutely.
If I'm telling you that beam right there looks a little crooked, might want to fix it now because
Yeah.
you can't build on top of it.
True.
That's my responsibility. Say, hey, take a step back, evaluate what's happening right now. Do you want to proceed like this, or do you want to take another avenue in your journey, right? So at least you need to have someone who's kind of like doing this quality insurance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're still letting this young person develop into who they are. But if there's ways that you can help them build stronger, and so their house is bigger
Yeah.
than yours,
Yeah.
do that.
Wow. That's so powerful. Why do you think society, putting it in this context, like the village, why is it that society, I don't know if society is actually doing its job like fully, but why is it that it's not raising children the way that it should be? What's like the main problem?
I think we've had a lot of fractures in our society. I think as much as we embrace technology, it has separated us, and we don't have as many interactions. And again, these are my perspectives.
Yeah.
I grew up in the country,
Mm.
and you walk past someone's house and you said hi to them, especially the elders, you
Yeah.
spoke to them. And when you walked back and they were still sitting on the porch, you spoke to
Yeah.
them again, right?
Yeah.
When you were out of line, they disciplined you
Mm.
as though you were their own.
Mm.
It was never extreme, right? But they saw you doing wrong. And they wanted to correct that, right? You were out of the the eyes or the earshot of your family, but it was their responsibility to correct you. And then when you got home, you got in trouble again, right? Right? You knew you were wrong, right?
Yeah.
Before you get home, the call was already made, right?
Exactly.
Right? But it was the responsibility, right? And because for those individuals, and most of the people that were in this neighborhood when I was younger, they were older, right? So I was basically the age of their grandchildren, right?
Yeah.
So they were older. But again, what they instilled in me hopefully has shown through my life, right? They've long been gone, right?
Wow.
But what they instilled in me then makes me part of who I am
Wow.
now, right?
Wow.
And it was that early correction. It wasn't, you can't correct my child, or it was, they're doing it for the best interest, and that was a known factor.
Yeah.
People are doing things for the best interest of the child.
Yeah.
And I think some of that has fallen away. You think about in some neighborhoods, do people really know their neighbors? Do they actually interact with their neighbors?
Yeah.
Can you tell them, hey, I'm going out of town, can you look out for the house?
Yeah.
There are some people I know, they don't know their neighbors' names.
True.
And they've lived beside them for years. So that sense of community has been fractured because we're ripping and running and we're going, and we're not creating that village anymore, right? Or at least that immediate village, right?
True.
We'll have a village, but sometimes it's extended, right? It may not be next door. It might be across town or another state.
True.
So it's still there. But I'm just talking about from my experience.
Yeah.
It was all those people who were near me that loved me and disciplined me when it was needed, that shaped who I am. You may not find that now, right? Because everyone's kind of doing their
True.
own thing and not
True.
thinking about how
Yeah.
can we help each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's so powerful. Based on all that you've shared, right? I feel like you're kind of connected to this. And if there is one solution that you can offer, like based on all that you've been through in your life, all that you've learned, in few seconds, what is one message that you can share?
Ooh, that's a really good question, deep question. I think I'll go back to this concept of being a member of the village, having empathy, feeling the sense of community and responsibility to help others, right? We are all fast-paced and we're trying to accomplish our own goals, but stop and think about your fellow person.
Wow.
What can you do to help? How can you help them succeed? How do you support the young people that are in your community? Even if it's can I donate something to you, right? If it's, hey, here's a book for a little one. If it's, hey, don't do that because you'll get hurt, right? Even those little things, I'm not fully disciplining you, but I'm trying to give you a little bit of guidance, right?
Yeah.
When we start having empathy and understanding the perspective of each other and feeling that we are truly connected as one people, I think we'll have a different place.
Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
you.
And thank you
Thank
for
you.
all that you shared.
Oh, thank you.
It was really awesome.